So, to start us off, we have Ethna Mckiernan. Ethna is the author of 3 books of poems, the most recent of which is Sky Thick with Fireflies from Salmon Poetry, Ireland. Widely anthologized in collections as diverse as the Notre Anthology of Irish American Poetry, 33 Minnesota poets, and beloved on this earth, she has twice been awarded a Minnesota State's Artwood Fellowship. She is employed by a Minneapolis nonprofit working with a long-term homeless population. Please welcome Ethna Mckiernan.
All right. Great to be here in these beautiful little neighborhood readings that Satish has organized. And thanks to Kimberly Nightingale for putting this amazing book together, and to a host of others who contribute to that. So each of us, I think, is reading what we have published in this edition this year, and then a few other pieces, and then on to the next reader. So I have 2 poems, one short, one longer. I think I'll start with the shorter one. It's called The Invitation. Shalom Nursing Home for Kathy Johannes. Tonight she asks you to sleep with her, both of you in the bed with side rails, a plastic mattress pad below. She is so happy to have found you, her daughter from the old house she loved. And you are torn between her and the world of things you never finish, duty calling always. Between you is the tunnel back to childhood, where your 95-year-old mother is young again, wanting nothing now but to touch your cheek, stroke your hair, claim you as her own. And my friend Kathy's mother actually died about a month after I wrote that poem last fall. Kathy kind of commissioned it and said, I want a poem about me and my mother, and here's the story. Last night she wanted me to stay overnight, so I just took it from there. So the next one in the Almanac is called Bald-Headed Men and Sundays. And that's how my kids used to characterize St. Paul. I grew up in St. Paul mostly, mind you, but they were raised in Minneapolis, and they really had a bit of disdain for this city. It made them think of bald-headed men and Sundays. My boys viewed their mid-1980s births in the old Midway Hospital on University between Porky's and Axeman as an embarrassment, a slight their St. Paul mom had designed to punish them by withholding the polished corridors of HCMC in their own hometown. It's just something when we cross the Lake Street Bridge that reminds us of church, makes us think of those bald guys, the old ones. It's not personal, Mom. Never having lived in that city of noble elms with doomed shoulders arced over Summit Avenue, or known the pine magic tang of Crosby Park at night on cross-country skis, or visited their mother's frayed grand house on Osceola, they simply lacked fuel for comparison. Their domain was Minneapolis, the jazzy skate parks, glitz of holodazzle each December, Sunday forays onto 8th and Hennepin for magic cards at Schindler's after church. That cherry in a giant spoon they longed to climb in Walker Sculpture Park. What did they know of meandering streets named not for numbers, but for places and for people? Or the majesty of that cathedral, heady slopes of Ramsey Hill or West Side cliffs, the white tinsel glitter of the winter carnival? How could they imagine the train yards off Shepherd Road, where their mother in her youth ditched the railroad cops to hop a few freights west to California? When they'd forgotten their Axeman treasures, home to everything you never knew you couldn't live without, I quelled the urge to pull them backward to when they were young and ignorant of the rivalry between two cities, when snow fell deep and their requests each night were for more words from Peter Rabbit before sleep. Thank you. And then I have 2 shortish poems about kind of the nature of truth and lies, or fact and fiction. And the first of those 2 is called Why I Lied My Way Through Childhood. Because I love the textured detail fiction added to the ordinary real, the dull navy Easter coat embroidered with elaborate gold brocade instead. Because I'd read Pippi Longstocking so many times, I couldn't help believe she truly was my cousin, and we'd lived together every summer on that island. Because the landscape of fact was plain as fish stick Fridays in Lent. And what harm was there imagining I'd turn the dial on Mrs. Hewitt's birth control pills a few notches forward when babysitting, bragging to disbelieving friends there'd be another baby in the year? Because I liked the sympathy the nuns doled like warm honey when they learned I had leukemia at 16. Because it's well known the Irish are prone to hyperbole, and because my parents refused me acting lessons, holding out instead for violin. Because I always wanted the world to be bigger than it is. Telling my children tonight about the time I won Merlin's sword in a stone toss, I know they know. This is the utter truth from Mom's childhood. And then another one on somewhat the same subject. Fiction and fact, lies and imagination. What said? Everything I just told you is a lie. The small domesticities of tenderness in the kitchen, the village where my grandmother was born, how I only drink socially, even the angle of light on my child's face in sleep, a lie. Nothing ever is as it appears. Remember that as you invent the shade of paint needed to construct beautiful artifice, or fall so deeply for the characters in your novel, you disconnect the phone to hold the long conversation in the living room. Your teenage daughter smooths the dent of her boyfriend's frame from the bed before you wake, saying nothing. The body count in the war contains fabrications. Rain's predicted, but it snows. You say, I'm fine, I'm really fine, when you aren't. And somewhere in between lies a fraction of the truth. And I will end with a sonnet for my father called Scholar in the Playroom. In my house, in our house when I was a child, growing up, behind the kitchen was a room we called the playroom, and it had a big old wood-burning stove. My father was an academic and always had his head in the books, but we were 9 kids and we were shooting all around him, and it did amaze me how he could concentrate as he did. The Scholar in the Playroom. My father's head was propped up in his hands. Around him, chaos swirled. The cello played off-key in practice. Someone vacuumed sand we'd tracked in from the beach. I was amazed that he could concentrate through all of this, scoring Shakespeare's words with yellow pen, and calmly reading as I wrestled Fergus, while the youngest blundered through the den. For years I've carried my father's image around, the flame in the storm, who loved the crazy wind his children were, despite the din of sound he sometimes wished he could rescind. He proved the ivory tower a myth, this anti-Lear, who kept his children, his Cordelias, near. Thank you, and the next reader-writer is Mike Finley.
Shall I just go? Want to read something? I was going to read something about you, yeah.
Okay, go.
Oh, sorry. Take your shots. Get it out of your system.